Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Lovemaster619 here. I know, my second live stream of the day. Interesting, isn't it? So, as I'm sure a lot of you know out there, I am an avid archer. I enjoy shooting archery. I am teaching my children how to shoot archery. And honestly, I wouldn't mind being able to start up my own little archery classes to help teach kids and people of various ages on how to shoot archery. But one thing that always has me very intrigued, speaking about the archery world, is the fact that so many of the primitive archers out there, especially the ones on YouTube, just some of the things they say I find extremely amusing and interesting. Now, to clarify, I myself am a traditional archer, for those of you that don't know. And pretty much what that means is that I myself do not typically shoot compound bows. Now, I do own a couple of compound bows, and I do occasionally shoot them, but they are older models, and they both need a little work on them before they are safe to shoot again. And at this point, they're more collectibles than anything. Perhaps I'll go ahead and show them in a future bow vlog, just for the fun of it. But, either way, what I'm getting at is that I myself prefer to shoot recurves, long bows, and things of that sort, nothing that actually has wheels. And I am also fairly heavy into the primitive archery world. You know, since I do learn about survival topics, and I do practice survival skills, I do enjoy learning about the primitive aspect of it. There are several channels here on YouTube that talk all about survival and also talk about primitive skills and primitive archery. To name a few, there is Primitive Pathways, Sean Woods, Beckham Outdoors. They do a lot more than just archery. And then you also have some of the more modern ones that talk more so about archery and kind of more so about survival, and briefly mention archery every now and then, such as the Pathfinder School and Survival Lily. All very great channels, please check them out. But one thing that I personally find very interesting is how channels such as Sean Woods and Primitive Pathways and even Beckham Outdoors, that I'll do heavily on the primitive archery spectrum of things, is how often they will say things along the lines of, even to this day, it still amazes me how effective these primitive Stone Age tools can be in the hands of an expert, and how deadly they can be on game animals of various sizes. And I can fully understand that from a modern perspective, it is incredible that something that essentially is tens of thousands of years old can still be so lethal and effective today when we have so many other conventional means that we essentially take for granted nowadays that we use. You know, high-speed compound bows, crossbows, even though crossbows aren't necessarily anything new, but the more modern aspects of them. Even the modern muzzleloading weapons or black powder weapons in general, and high-speed, high-velocity centerfire rifles and such. You know, when you're comparing something like a wooden self bow with, let's say, river cane arrows with turkey feather fletching and hand-napped arrowheads, yeah, it can seem like something as simple as that can be so effective. But at the same time, I gotta be like, why are you so surprised by this? I mean, literally, humanity, for several hundred thousands of years, according to some scientific experts at least, have been surviving using stone tools. If you look at the gigantic amount of technology that has been created and used throughout mankind's history, not only the technology spectrum as far as modern technology, but even going so far as to say metallurgy and using different types of metal as tools in the span of humanity's time frame is so minute. It's so small, insignificant. The vast majority of the rest of human history, it's all been stone tools. So how can you sit there and constantly say, I'm so amazed by how effective this is? It's the exact same way it's been for thousands of years. How can that still be so amazing? And I am not saying this in a derogatory manner. I'm not bashing on them at all, and I'm not trying to say, well, you're an idiot for saying that. No. I'm not saying that. Please don't get me wrong on that. All I'm saying is, to a point, how can you really be so amazed by how well something works when it's worked for numerous thousands of millennia? Well, maybe hundreds of millennia rather than thousands of millennia, but you get what I mean. So that's all I'm saying for there is, it just amazes me how often that happens. And even going a little more recent, well, maybe not necessarily recent, but a few years ago, here in Colorado, if I remember correctly, and I'm sure it's happened in other states as well. Sometimes I swear on my tongue with how much I talk with my hands. Anyway, a few years ago, in Colorado, I think it might have been around Estes Park or one of those other mountain communities like that, it was found that somebody was poaching deer illegally. And they weren't even necessarily doing it for the food either. They were just cutting the antlers off or cutting the heads off and leaving the carcasses strewn around. And they were using a modern compound crossbow to poach these animals with. And what baffles me is the fact that the news that was covering the story had to give an entire demonstration with professionals to show just how lethal these crossbows really are. And meanwhile, I'm sitting there going, did every single one of you fail history or something? Crossbows have been used for thousands of years to attack armored knights. And again, thousands of years might be a little bit of a stretch. I don't remember when approximately the first crossbow was made, but speaking even just of medieval times, there's been documentation of how powerful those crossbows were. There were reasons that the upper class tried to outlaw crossbows in warfare. The Pope deemed they were evil items that, pretty much put the common peasant at the same level as a nobleman, simply because a peasant could pick up a crossbow and kill someone of nobility super easy. And even though you had to be really close in order to actually penetrate plate armor, there are documents of those bolts actually going through plate armor. So do you really think that several hundred years later, do you think that over the course of those several hundred years that crossbows were still in use, that they somehow became so much less effective that it's only because of modern technology that they're now somehow these ungodly weapons, just like the Pope said? I fully get that crossbows were very quickly phased out by early firearms, especially once the matchlock came around. They had hand cannons, and they were, to a point, effective, but more often than not, the hand cannon was just as dangerous to the user as the one that it was aimed at, because metallurgy was not very good at that time for making gun barrels. So sometimes those little hand cannons would go from being a short-range projectile weapon to a pipe bomb that would take out the person that was shooting it. Once the matchlock was developed, the arquebus, to be precise, as one of the first very well-known matchlock weapons, then the face of warfare completely changed. And the crossbow was quickly phased out. But even with that time frame, the crossbow was still in use, not necessarily for warfare, but the crossbow was still used for all those centuries up until modern technology really started taking over. So how can you tell me that now, all of a sudden, it is this ungodly thing that has the same qualities, well, maybe not necessarily qualities, but killing power, quote-unquote, of a modern handgun? And people need to be aware of how destructive these items are. Really? You're telling me that something like a crossbow, which is a weapon meant for hunting, is dangerous? No. Sarcasm overload is probably what I should have put as the title for this rather than perspectives, but at this point I think you get what I mean. Yeah. Okay, so hopefully the connection isn't that bad. Hello, I'm back. So yes, that's just something that I find interesting, is how something that has been around for a very long time frame can be suddenly, for lack of a better term, I guess you could say, resurrected, kind of. And then suddenly people are going nuts about seeing it again. Hello, Daddy Daughter Broadcasting. Take YouTube to work daily. I kind of do. Let's go ahead and just back this up rather than going forward. Welcome back. Thank you. Yeah, if you missed the first part of my live stream, I was kind of just going on a sarcastic rant, pretty much, about some of the perspectives that are taken nowadays on certain things. It's just something that I find amusing. And oh, no. They're not trying to take away bows, thank God. As far as I know, I don't think anyone has tried to attack a school with bows yet. Even though, amusingly enough, I was actually accused of that in high school. And it's the stupidest thing, too. I remember this very well. Story time. Let's jump back to my junior or senior year of high school. Me and my friends were standing outside during lunch, and I got this funny idea because I had been watching Lord of the Rings recently, and I said, can you imagine how freaky it would be if those trees suddenly pulled themselves up out of the ground and started trying to chop down people with axes? Just as a complete joke, right? Because the high school I went to, we have a lot of trees around there. It's actually a pretty nice campus, if you can even call a high school grounds campus, but either way, you get what I mean. Let me just get my popcorn. And some people that did not like me in school for whatever reason overheard that, and where they got this connection, I still don't know. It might have been from some of the other conversations me and my friends have had in the past, but they reported to the principal saying that I was threatening to attack the school with pipe bombs and bows and arrows. What? I would have laughed. yeah, my friends did laugh at it because it was so ridiculous, but the principal called me in after these people reported me, and even they were going, what the heck are these people talking about? And I told them, I don't know. I told them the same story I did about the tree, and they laughed about it too. They said, where did they get the pipe bomb thing from? I said, I have no idea. And all I was saying was that it's not hard to make something like that. Not only if someone is in chemistry, can you look up volatile chemicals that are highly reactive together, but you can get common household items to make things like that, and it's not hard to do. You know, at the time, I wasn't aware that you still had to be 21 to purchase gunpowder, but, you know, even at 18, you can purchase some certain kinds of ammunition and get gunpowder out of them. And then you can go to the hardware store and buy a simple PVC pipe. That's all I was saying, was it's really not hard to make stuff like this. I never threatened anything like that, but for whatever reason, they interpret it as that. But what's funny is when I told my band teacher that story, he laughed and said, if you attacked the school with guns, I wouldn't be too worried, but if you attacked the school with a bow, I'd be running the other way full speed. Because he knew that I was an archer, and he knew that I had gone to state competition several times in 4-H. And the last time that I did compete in state competition, for my particular group, we had 140 archers for the overall state competition, and I ranked 14th. So I was in the top 10%, and I was basically the worst of the best, is the way that I constantly look at it. You know, it's kind of taking something that's not necessarily too great and making it sound better than it probably is, but either way, I still personally think that's pretty doggone good. To make it all the way to state competition with 140 other shooters and rank that high, hey, I'm patting myself on the back for it. I completely agree. Some people are very overly sensitive. I mean, and this was before the term snowflake was even coined. But either way, you know, what can you do? Itchy. Thank you very much. If I remember correctly, after that last state competition, I was technically too old to compete in 4-H shooting sports anymore, so after that there weren't very many groups around to join anymore to do any kind of competitive archery, unfortunately. So I was restricted to just shooting in the backyard by myself, which, honestly, I'm fine with. I mean, a good way to look at archery is kind of like swimming. Because I was on the swim team in middle school, and the way that you really have to look at swimming is not necessarily trying to compete with the other people, but rather compete with yourself. Try and be your own best time. Don't focus on the other people, which is kind of hard to do in other sports, but in swimming, it really is more of kind of a one-on-one type of situation, or at least it was for me when I was swimming. In archery, it's a lot the same way, honestly. It's like, yeah, sure, maybe you're in a really big competition, and if you have relations with the other people, relationships, whichever terminology you wish to use, if you kind of know the people already and you're having a friendly competition with them, then yeah, it's good to compete against them. But if it's a group of people that you don't even know, I know the competitive spirit might be there, but if you've never really met any of those people, there's no kind of, what's the term I'm looking for here? There isn't necessarily that much of a camaraderie between you and the other competitors. So at that point, it's much more of, okay, this is the best score that I got last time. How good of a score can I get this time? So, I don't know. This has kind of just been a nonsensical rant the entire time. But, you know, that's that's the beauty of live streaming. You kind of can just say whatever it is that's on your mind and get it out there. And if you don't like it very much after the fact, then you can just delete it off of YouTube and you don't have to worry about it anymore. But we're almost to the store, so I'm going to go ahead and get this wrapped up. But either way, thank you so much for joining Daddy Daughter Broadcasting. It was excellent, as always, to see you here. For anyone who watches this in post, please be sure to check out their channel. They do awesome live streams as well with his daughter, and she's an absolute cutie. I think that's probably one of the biggest reasons that they have a pretty good pull in their channel so far. They were very few away. Hi, S&M. How are you doing? Are you guys planning on doing a live stream later today, or are you planning on getting a new video uploaded at all? Honestly, I can't wait to see what next videos you're planning on bringing in. That's for sure. What you're planning on uploading. But yes, please be sure to check out their channel. They're at almost 700 subscribers. They might have beaten 700 subscribers by now. And Daddy is actually very talented with the guitar and the piano. You know, some of the live streams they do, he plays the guitar and piano and sings a few different kinds of songs. So by all means, please check them out. I'm glad she's smiling. Very good to see you guys here. I'm glad you're able to make it. But either way, I am actually pulling right into the parking lot now, so I'm going to say thank you all so much for watching. Whoa. Think you could have taken that corner a little less there, pal? They constantly say that we go through there way too damn fast, and yet he's booking it through there at like 30 miles an hour. Ugh. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. As always, drive safe. Bowmaster619 out. We will see you in the next video. Take care. Be of good courage at work. Always.